So thank you guys again for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, good afternoon.
Just a second, Rob. We have a little bit of housekeeping that we want to take care of before we get into the presentation. First is just a plug for the next webinar. That'll be November the 12th. You can see on your screen, Jack Blair from the Blair Corporations will explain the ins and outs of cable railing. Next is, I hope all of us are excited we get to meet in person again in Reno in February. In preparation for that, we would appreciate any donations we can get for the NEF silent auction. Those forms are due by November the 21st if you're interested in donating for that NEF auction. And then for Metal Fab, save the date February 11th through the 13th at the Peppermill Resort and Spa in Reno. Should be a great time to meet again after just a year off. And then finally, so that we can have a top job jamboree like this again, please submit your applications for top job. We will be accepting donations until November the 3rd. So get your pictures taken before the weather turns bad, and for those of us in winter climates, and let's fill up the top job entries. And now we'll turn the time over to the guys at Farah Designs, and they'll explain to us this job.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And first and foremost, I want to thank NOMMA for featuring our project and winning this award. It's very humbling, and we're really honored by it. As everyone knows, I'd say the majority of the people, listening to this are craftsmen, and we really take a lot of pride in what we build, what we design and build. So to have it recognized is really great, and it really helps like morale with the whole team, because a lot of the times the guys in the shop don't have an opportunity to see the finished product. So with that said, Farah Designs is a Brooklyn-based company. We work out of a 30,000 square foot industrial facility located in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. This project couldn't have happened without the team that we have, which is, absolutely amazing. We had Ari as the lead designer on this project, and, Jan Michael does a little of everything in not only managing, but also facilitating and helping get these projects done. And I'm pretty much overseeing everything that's happening at the shop. But essentially, to talk a minute about Farah, we're a team of designers, engineers, and artisans committed to high-end architectural metalwork and providing our clients with the top service, that we could possibly provide. We're a design build firm, which means we could actually build from architectural drawings, which usually aren't that great, and we end up tweaking them. But we could also participate in a design assist, which we do quite often, where we sit down with the architect or the designer through a series of meetings to create whatever it is that they're looking for. So with that said, if we want to jump into the next slide, we can. So this particular project, as beautiful as it is, was very, very challenging on so many different levels. So for people that are coming in cold, it's a really beautiful staircase, but it's in a penthouse apartment in Manhattan, which has its own set of problems to begin with, just getting materials indoors, the size of the elevator, all of that stuff is what informs the design. And that usually starts, the actual design process itself usually starts with a very thorough site survey. So in this particular case, we did a 3D scan of both floors, and then we did a probe of the thickness of the slab on the second floor, just to discern, what the finished floor-to-floor height would be, but also to make sure that there would be structural integrity after cutting out a large portion of the floor. So here you see us designing a template and laying down the template, and then having all of the relevant markings to lay out the staircase on the top floor. And the image on the left is after it was cut out. So a lot of people might not realize that when you're working on these projects, you're actually working backwards. So, in other words, you're looking at the finished product and the rendering or the proposed idea, and then you have to think about the feasibility of building it. Again, how is it going to fit in the building? How many sections should it be made? All of the filigree and the finishes and all of that, to us, that really comes down later down the line. First, you got to figure out how to make this thing, if it's going to function, if it's going to rack. So you have a lot of people on the team, you know, Ari in particular in this case was interfacing quite a bit with our engineer, just to reassure all of us that this would have the structural integrity to hold people walking up and down the stairs, and there would be no racking. So we could go to the next image now. One good thing about working with a survey, with a thorough survey, a digital survey, is that we can employ some of those dimensions into the SolidWorks model. So with people that aren't familiar with SolidWorks, SolidWorks is a CAD software, and it's unique because it parametrically changes. If you were to incorporate any sort of a dimensional change, the whole model itself would change proportionally. So this comes in really handy because if you build the model correctly, and it has to stretch a half of an inch or an inch, or it even has to get lower, the whole staircase in and of itself, all the hole patterns, all of the tabs, all of the railings, everything shrinks proportionally. So the key is to get that working model. And in this case, Ari did an amazing job taking all the data from the survey and then introducing it into the model and creating a really dense model. Okay, now we could go to the next photo. One of the driving forces with the project was this filigree design. So that really drove the whole project, this kind of whimsical, dense design that is pretty much mimicked throughout the entire building. So when we first met with the designer and the architect and the actual client, we walked around the building and we saw this particular pattern throughout the entire building. So the client really loved the pattern, and they asked us if we could, you know, introduce that pattern into the railings, and of course we did. And here we go with a little mock-up. This is a little mock-up that we made early on just to prove out the digital file. And this is also really interesting, something that people, you know, may not realize, the complexity of even just laser cutting some of these dense shapes. With the physicality of actually cutting it, depending on how long the piece is and how thick the material is, the material quite often moves. And this is called anistrophy, which is stress relieving the material. So as you're stress relieving the material,
I got them on speaker. I mean, on view. Yeah.
Yeah, the material could actually start moving, and you could actually ruin a part if the material moves too much or even an infinitesimal amount. So by doing these little mock-ups, you not only reassure the client that they're getting exactly what they want, but it also reassures us that we could take this language, this design language, and introduce it to the rest of the staircase. Next, JM. Here we go, jumping into fabrication. One of our preferred techniques in creating helical staircases is a technique called incremental bumping, and that's showcased on the left. So after we designed the entire staircase and we figured out how it actually goes together, we laser cut those parts, do some deburring, and then on our press brake, we do, again, incremental bending. And in this particular case, I think it was every inch or every 3/4 of an inch, we actually came down with our punch and die and introduced an infinitesimal amount of pressure onto that respective piece of material to get it to move in the direction and the shape that we want. After all of that is done, we check it with laser cut templates. So, you know, the bumping in and of itself is very, very difficult. Although there's an algorithm built into the software for bumping, it's never really 100% accurate because all material has different spring back and different tensile strength. So, you know, we try to get as close as possible with using the software, but at the end, it's up to the press brake operator to introduce the amount of tonnage needed to actually move the material. And again, we check all of this with templates as we go. After everything was welded together on the prior slide, now we started bumping and forming all of the railings that you see, and we started fitting them up. So this is where it gets really tricky because now you have a hybrid of laser cut material, which is within a few thousandths of an inch, and that's being introduced to hand bumped material, which could be, you know, plus or minus a 16th of an inch, although we try to get it as perfect as possible. So to get those two worlds to collide, the new technology along with the old school handwork technology, that's a challenge that you know, we very often undertake. And I think for me personally, that's what makes these jobs successful. When you see something really crisp and clean, and then you think about, wow, how was this made? They must have used their hands above and beyond all of the equipment and all of that good stuff. So here we have one of the fabricators actually assembling the railings onto the stringers. And if you notice on the bottom right, you have a stringer, and there's a little bit of daylight between the stringer and the filigree. And that's just created like a nice shadow and somewhat of a moire effect when you walk by the staircase. It just gives you the illusion of things moving because the filigree is living within this void. So we could go to the next one, JM. And yeah, this shows a video of trying to get this perfect. If you look at the reveals and look at the daylight between the filigree and the stringer, we got it pretty good, I must say. But it didn't come easy, that's for sure. All right, here we go, continuing the installation. What gets tricky with these installation is that at this particular point in time, all of the handrail components and all of the stringers, they were already finished. But yet everything had to be welded together in the field. So this is always a challenge because just rigging the material, welding in the field always compromises the finish. So we do a lot of experiments in the shop where we'll take the same material and we'll do kind of like a faux finish on those materials and then weld them together and then see how we could kind of introduce a really nice finish on the welded component so it blends in effortlessly with the rest of the components. So from a finishing perspective, it's really tough to get everything like absolutely perfect at the end. But what we ended up doing was after everything was welded and ground down, and we did the finishing, we kind of built a cocoon around the staircase in plastic with a ventilator and so on. And then we did one final round of painting with this beautiful metallic bronze paint. And that really homogenized everything. So the client was really happy that we did that and we just didn't leave the patches where the stringer was welded together or where the railing was welded together. Here we go. These are more finished. This is more of the finished product. And you could see in the middle image, we try to eliminate unnecessary tapped holes. And we wanted to kind of eliminate as much hardware as possible. So we did these very, very micro TIG welds on the filigree to keep it nice and firm within the stringer. And that's why you don't see any mechanical connections. After that process, we had our woodworker come in, and actually, this is interesting. We had the woodworker come in at the shop to do a general template of the general shapes of these helical handrails and some of the curved handrails. So he was able to glue up all of the material, but then and kind of get it roughly to where it wanted to be, its kind of proposed shape. But then he actually came to the job site and he was hand forming and hand sanding a lot of these railing components so they they join together seamlessly. So that was pretty neat to watch the wood being incorporated with the metalwork. And that's also not easy to get all of this wood to follow these very specific curves and dips and these helical shapes.
Oh,
Yeah, we could go to the next one. Or is this the last one?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go back one if you have any other thoughts here on camera as far as things you can bring up on this. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that hand carving on site was intense.
Yeah, the hand carving on site was intense. And then also not, you know, it seems like we're always the last people on the job site. So for one reason or the other, you know, they save. I think people always underestimate how difficult architectural metalwork is, and you always need more time than what you have. So in the end, you end up working in a finished job site. So you have to try to mitigate all the dust, all the debris, and just try to figure out techniques, whether it's templates or whether it's digital data, just trying to figure out techniques as to, you know, how not to make a mess in the house, because that dust goes absolutely everywhere. And again, these are all, I think they started moving in the furniture. Yeah, you could see they started moving in the furniture at some point before we were even done. And just to give you an idea, on the bottom left, that sculpture, that's well into the six figures. So, you know, you have these priceless artwork, you know, you have this beautiful interior, you have all the furniture imported from, you know, whatever country it came from, and it's up to you to keep the space clean and free of debris. So that's another thing that you always, you know, you never really take into account too much, but it comes with the territory.
And Ari, I recall that this thing not being perfectly circular presented some challenges as well. He's unmuted.
Not so much. I mean, one of the biggest challenges, of course, is always hiding all the screws. So in this image here, that go back one, having to be able to mount all the brackets around the perimeter without the lattice work, and then put the lattice work in afterwards with very minimal screws. It's kind of one of the games that play, because they didn't want to have basically any screws, even for all the structural work. So all the posts go through the guardrail and mount to the bottom of the stringer. You can see in the photo here on the right-hand side, to alleviate having to need a base mount connection on the top of the stringer. A lot of the game here was hiding screws.
Mm-hmm. Ari, what would you say some of your challenges were above and beyond maybe some of the things that I mentioned?
Well, again, the pattern. So, you know, you going from that 3D model. So modeling the pattern is kind of an impossibility in 3 dimensions. It just would crash the software. So if you go back one more slide to the 3D model, once I created as a surface, I was able to then extract those planes on the outside face, flatten those, and then build the pattern on top of that. But getting the pattern to be seamless with no joints between the stringer and the guardrail, and from guardrail to guardrail panel, that was a lot of the trick.
What about transition from panel to panel? Did you, in certain cases, have to make any adjustments to the artwork itself so it doesn't land on the railing at a particular weird, you know, part?
No, the pattern was dense enough. The challenge was more making the pattern consistent over the entire length. Wherever there was a picket, I cut out the thickness of the picket, so it disappeared. And then I always put a border around every component.
Yeah, so it's like one big
so
ribbon.
like in that photo there, you could see that one of those loops continues up and around each guardrail panel. Yeah, it's consistent the whole way around the pattern.
Wow. Yeah, I remember the cutting being challenging. Oh, you know, it's another thing, Ari, I forgot to mention, and we never thought about. After we did all of this cutting, we had to deburr everything.
Right, yeah.
So what was really funny is when we first took on the job, the architect and the client, they asked if we could duplicate the railings that were on the actual job site. So, you know, I was touching the railings, and I noticed that none of them were deburred. And you could also see You could also see the lead in. You could also see the lead in and lead out.
is profiting our
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. So you could also see the lead in and lead out. And obviously, we try to do and we really strive to do impeccable work. So that was unacceptable. We can't, provide a client with that. So literally our team, we had a hand file. There was really no other way of doing it. Hand file the burrs and any evidence of the laser, get rid of that totally. So that took a tremendous amount of time. That was really time consuming.
Yeah, and the other neat thing about this one is in the photo on the left where the guy's walking, this one does not actually touch the wall. It floats off the wall even though it comes close. And it's pretty stiff. It's one of the stiffest stairs we've made. You can bounce on it. There's almost no vibration, even though it just connects at the top. So,
Did they not want it? Did they?
no, they wanted it to. Yeah, they wanted it to float off the wall.
They really did want.
Originally, there was supposed to be some famous sculpture on the back of that wall that he got stuck overseas with COVID and then didn't make it here afterwards. And I don't know. They had some big project they were going to put on that wall that never happened.
Oh wow.
Yes,
Well,
I remember this entire template going very close to that wall.
Right.
There was a path there before.
Right. So that's not even the finished wall. That's the rough wall. So once you put a stud on there and drywall on that wall, I mean it got pretty close, but it's 1.5 inch clearance on that wall.
Guys, there was a question asked by someone. What was your method of getting stuff up? Did you use cranes, elevators, to get all of the materials, the finished materials and otherwise up to the unit itself?
Well, this one was delivered in pieces through the elevator.
Yeah.
Sometimes we've craned in a single-story staircase right through a window that was 1 inch wider than the staircase. That's been fun. But this one, if you go to the fabrication photos, the tread pans all remove. So you have to basically, there's a split line in the stringer. Each stringer was a half a stringer. Those got welded together on site. The tread pans bolt in, and then we welded all those connections off behind the wood. We didn't, I say this question for vibration analysis. We don't normally do a vibration analysis. Yeah, I mean, we didn't do one for this. The challenge with engineering is always the engineer will provide a deflection criteria for how much the guardrail will move, but that's not necessarily a factor of failure. It just will flex. And so sometimes it'll flex 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. In this case, it was like 1/8 of an inch of deflection. And then the engineer will give us a report on how much the stair will sag, both with just the dead load and then the live load and the dead load. So we'll take into account the dead load, and then when we assemble it, we'll build it up a bit, and the sag will take it down to that elevation.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? I guess I'm seeing some come to the chat. How do you get the bump rolling to become smooth?
Oh boy, that's good old fashioned grinding, sanding and grinding. There's no way around that. To get rid of any of the highlights or any of the evidence of the punch and die. So you just, the guys are just really talented. Thank God, we got a great team over there. But
yeah, the steel's more forgiving. We've done this on brass and bronze, and the bronze. Remember those little those light fixtures we made? The bronze telescopes the bump texture a lot, and so that takes a lot more sanding. I don't think the stringers didn't show much faceting on these in this exact case because it's 1/2 inch steel. So I think we only had to fix the inside face.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. If you don't put the time into it, then you start seeing the reflection in the paint. You'll see ridges. It could look strange. Although, years ago, I want to say like 15, 20 years ago, we did a staircase where the client wanted the evidence of the press brake, and it was all hot rolled steel. So we did hot rolled steel. We bumped it. There was all the ridges, and then the scale was like popping off in some areas, and he loved it. So we just did a lacquer over the steel. And I think that was the one and only time in my career that we left the bump marks on. Usually people just don't want to see it. What kind of paint was it? This is automotive paint, correct?
Mhm.
I don't remember the exact. Was it the?
Yeah.
Give me the brand.
It's automotive refinish paint.
Yeah. So it had to be primed, right? We had to prime and paint.
It was shipped primed. Yeah, it was sent to the
Yeah.
site primed.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big factor with this is this particular paint lets you choose levels of mica that get mixed into the paint. Yeah, we got that tweaked pretty well. It's got a nice shine to it.
Yeah. What I do remember was how pricey it was. JM, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's like close to $800 a gallon. Is that correct?
Yeah, the entire system is very pricey.
Right?
Yeah,
It's really pricey.
yeah, it's pricey.
So, needless to say, many gallons, touching up and all of that. But in the end, it's a durable, beautiful paint. So that'll last, for quite a long time. And I prefer painting over the patina. So I'm seeing more people opting for the paint. I think from a maintenance perspective, we used to do a lot more patinaed black in the field. And I see that kind of, metalwork could be a little trendy too. So, if you see a handful of painted staircases, then all of a sudden for that year, you'll see a lot of them being painted. And then 5 years later, it flips back to black and steel. How many hours did you have in the fab and install? Oh boy. I gotta check T-sheets on that. I know it was a few thousand. I know that for sure. Because I was tracking it. But I gotta look into that. But it was the whole thing was a few thousand hours. And it was a lot. It was a lot. A lot of time.
And then there was a question about the cap rail. Was that done by the guy behind on Nick over here?
Yeah, Nick did it. Yeah. What was the question?
It was who did it, how did we proceed, and was based on site survey. So I mean I can answer, but yeah, no, we the woodworker is right behind that wall over here, behind my screen, and he templated it in the shop when the stair was built here, and then he finished the fit up and did the final sanding in the field. But all that sub rail that you see there, that was all made by us, and he fitted it to that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, now we have a question. Why did we bump as opposed to rolling? So this is my opinions. Everyone has a different working style, but I'm of the opinion of if you're rolling a compass curve, it's a controlled roll, and if the material is also the same width, then you could do a controlled roll. But when you have these weird shapes, like if you were to see a section, or actually if you were to see an elevation of one of these stringers unfurled, it's a weird shape. And in some areas it could be wider than others. So the bumping just ends up being a lot more accurate. You have more precision with the bumping. Again, especially when it goes from a compass curve to an arc to something really tight. There's no way you could really roll that. You could roll it just to get the general shape to get you started, but then you have to bump it anyway because there's no way to get in there with the roller and go from a very subtle curve to something very abrupt, like kind of what happens in the lower areas. I saw the other question, but it disappeared.
This was done for a general contractor, so the question. Most of our work is with the general contractors.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a genie lift, and we have a portable gantry that we put some aluminum I-beams on and had that on the upper floor and lifted with that. We use it in the shop. We took it down when we need to go to deliveries with it.
Yeah, we actually bought an aluminum one. Remember that?
That
the
came
EMB.
newer. That's afterwards. That we bought
Oh,
for.
that came
That's for
after?
the one in Florida. We just, yeah.
Oh, wow.
But it would have been great. I think this was the last one we used our homemade version for.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's another thing too to consider when you take on these jobs. Like, you know, you got to be careful, like padding the budget too much, because then you lose the job if it gets just wickedly expensive. Not that this was cheap, but when you think about what goes into just the rigging, you know, having to design some custom rigs or even bringing it in the job site, that's a whole job in and of itself. Just the apparatus you might design to get it exactly where you want it to lift these pieces accurately. We own the engineering, so we usually take on everything. So it's kind of, we call it turnkey. So when we're bidding on these jobs, we just call it turnkey. So you know, the general contractor, the client doesn't have to worry about anything. So once we go through the design assist, then we get it engineered and we're responsible. We do a lot of different work. If you have an opportunity, if you go to ferretdesigns.com, you could see our website. We do an array of, we do such a vast amount of work. We'll do everything from railings to staircases to exterior canopies to facades to furniture. You know, we tapped into this whole trend that was happening in the city with these luxury towers that were popping up. So we'll do some kind of high-end commercial work, but then we'll do, you know, high-end residential as well, which is more like this. So we'll do the amenities, we'll do a feature wall, we'll do doors. Actually, right now we're working on the Waldorf Astoria. We were awarded a 3-year contract, and we've been doing a really beautiful ornamental metal package, and it encompasses a little of everything. So if you check out our Instagram, the Ferret Designs Instagram, there's a lot of cool stuff showcased over at the Waldorf.
We did a silvered fireplace for this as well.
Oh, for this residence, yeah, we did the
Yeah,
silver
that was
fireplace,
nice.
we did
That
the
was fun.
ceiling,
Yeah.
we did the ceiling and some other stuff in there. Oh, the wine, the doors for the wine cellar.
Yeah.
I see a question about the engineering is we have our sub that we use we have 2 different subs we use, one for more boring little like simple handrails, and then one we use for staircases and real complicated projects where deflections matter and it's not just the report we're looking for. He gives us 3-dimensional imagery that kind of shows how it's deflecting and where this loads pile up, and that helps us to design it as well as just giving the reports.
And our quote unquote boring guy can get us stamped and sealed for public work. So
Right. We don't do stamping in our. I get the
love that
stamp. Yeah. No, he does good stamps.
Right now we have about we have 30 people. We got about, no, actually it's a little bit more. We got like 33 people full time, and then we have another kind of 10 people on standby, like they're subcontractors, but we pretty much keep them busy like year round. So they're not like our employees, but we use them year round. So we've gotten really busy over the last 2 years. So we have an exclusive team that just does our installations, and those are all Ferret employees. And these guys are just jumping around from site to site. And then we have the guys in the shop, we have the design team, and then we have a finishing team. So we got about 4 relevant teams that interface the whole day constantly. What's happening the next day, who's driving where, you know, what's being dropped off, who's installing what, who's the lead on that particular project. So there's a lot of organizing that goes into these projects. So you're looking at one right here, but while this was happening, we had a handful of other projects happening. So, you know, that's always a challenge, splitting up the team, and you might want one particular guy who's like the best TIG welder from the team to be on this job site, but he already committed to do something else on the other one. So you're shuffling people around. And so now when we hire, we just make sure that everyone we hire is super qualified, and that they could do multiple things. They could not only install, but they could also weld, they could also drill and tap, and they have a pretty decent understanding of metalwork. So that way, if they have to jump into something specific, they can.
This staircase was fully made out of steel. The structural steel stringer itself is 1/2 inch, just HRPO. And then all the remainder of it was 1/4 inch. So all the infills were all 1/4 inch thick. So the bumped components were 1/2 inch. Oh, and then the infill, those were just rolled. Those I didn't think we bumped. Those were thin enough after being perforated that we could just manually roll those.
Oh yeah, the ones on the top, on the
Yeah.
left. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you see, that's when it makes sense to roll. That when it makes sense to bump it.
Hopefully we do.
Oh yeah.
That's the comment.
Oh yeah, that's right. The one we're working on now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the one. We got to keep it.
yeah. I like to take the photos too, so a lot of the photos are my own. So I just photographed another one, so hopefully we'll win it.
Oh, we could put that one in too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no shortage of projects we could enter, so that's cool. Wow, thank you for the compliment, Peter.
Yeah, thanks.
It looks like we are just about wrapping up all the questions. If there isn't anybody with a last second question, I think we'll thank you guys again very, very much. We know your time is valuable, but your work is beautiful, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. But it does look like we have one last question. What would you have done differently, if anything, on this project?
That's a good question.
Oh wow, bid it higher. That's
I mean,
one
look,
thing.
on the point about the paint, we've had experience with alternate paints, including one system that I think might have been better on this. I know that for this one, the designer didn't want to go the patina route. I think it would look nice patinaed as well. But they chose paint, and had we done, if we were to do this over again, I'd probably use a different paint system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would we do differently, Ari? I don't know. I think it was a really smart design, the way everything pulled together. It was challenging, but I don't know. There's really nothing. The challenges were just inherent in the design and forming and all of that good stuff. So I don't really know what. I don't know. Ask for more time. These are all the typical things. You go back. You wish you had another month or two, but that's always impossible. What
We have a
scanning?
Disto. It's a Disto 3D. And we don't do point clouds. We scan points that are relevant to us. Otherwise, you have a model that's just unusable. So what you see him doing is he scanned the perimeter of the cutout, which was really great because it did not match what they gave me as the original DXF of the cutout. They had to make some changes because they hit rebar. And so I think it actually grew a little bit. So we scanned it, and that was the template on the right came from that scan. So what you see him doing there is he's mapped that point up to with the dot laser to match it out to the cutout, and that's how he's locating it on the floor below.
Mm.
So those two shapes are the exact same shape. Yeah, this one had a lot of CAD work. Just after the modeling, all the CAD work to get the patterning to work out. That was a lot of work.
Well, you guys did a great job, Ari. So, you know, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
You know, the whole team, our install team. I know Aaron put in a crazy amount of time there.
Mhm.
You know, he was hustling. All these guys. The you know, the gentleman right here on the right, you know, he's actually a blacksmith. He's actually a blacksmith. So, you know, at Thera, we recognize the value in like old world craftsmanship. So even though we're working in you know, SolidWorks and so on and so forth, it's always nice to have people on board that understand metal really thoroughly. And we find that blacksmiths are particularly talented because they know how to form and shape. So we hired this young man, and it really came in handy in rolling and forming those helical bands on the middle, in the middle photo, the railing on the top, the sub rail. So those were rolled, but then he was also hand forged to get those very specific twists. So
Yeah,
it's
there's
kind
no
of
magic
nice
to do that top rail. That top
Yeah,
rail is all just
yeah,
handmade.
it's all handmade. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that, you know, we forget about sometimes, like, you know, the background of some of the guys, you know, and then when you learn about it, you really recognize and appreciate their skill set.
Rob, you gonna host the next chapter meeting? Is the last question here.
I didn't see it. Which one was it? I didn't see it. I didn't see the question.
They want to know if we're gonna host the next chapter meeting.
Oh, oh, sure. I think so. I think we got a lot of good stuff in the pipeline. So, you know, and I'm confident we could at least submit some cool stuff. So, but you know, I also wanted to thank all of the people we were competing against because they're super talented. That's why this was so humbling. Like, I remember looking at all the entries, and there was some really beautiful work. It was really impressive. Okay, we'll let you know. That would be awesome.
And I just opened up the chat. Yeah, Philippe, we've been meaning to reach out to you. I'm gonna make sure that Rob connects with you. And I know we just finished a job with alongside Philippe's company.
Or they at the
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we see Philippe's company all over the place.
Oh, thank you. Perfect. I like to hear that.
All right. If there are no other questions, we're very happy to chat more about this. You can email us. Rob's email is rob@fairdesigns.com. We can post it on the chat as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, I'll post mine on the chat.
Well, cool. Well, it was nice reviewing the project.
Well,
All right, thanks a lot, everyone.
On behalf of NOMMA, thank you very much for presenting today, and we appreciate everyone who attended and your engagement. And I think this was a great, very educational hour. So thank you guys very much, and we will see you all at the next webinar.
Okay.
Great,
Awesome.
thanks.
All right. And thank you again for the opportunity. We appreciate this so much. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.